the Forged and Unbroken podcast.
Awesome, man. Well, first things first, because I think when we were talking before, I kept messing up. Like, I didn't even know what time zone you were in. Like, I don't know the first thing about like Great Lakes region, what would you keep saying? The UP, Upper Peninsula? What was that?
Yeah, Upper Peninsula.
Yeah, cool. So, dude, if you could, because I have, like I said, zero idea of that area. If you could give us a rundown of what your area is, what it entails, like the demographics of your department, and just like general culture stuff of where you're at in your area.
Yeah. So currently I'm with Marquette City Fire in Marquette, Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula, as I call it, the real part of Michigan. To kind of give a little bit better idea of what Marquette really is, it's a little bit smaller, like Ann Arbor area, or even in Frederick, like kind of like the downtown area, a little bit older area. We do have a college there, so depending on the time of year, it gets a little bit busier than some. But then the summer, we're a big tourist spot too. So we're right on Lake Superior.
Nice.
We cover a large lake frontage of that. So our city sits right on that. So summers get kind of crazy too. Big mountain biking place in the summer, and then it turns into skiing in the winter. Bunch of trails, ski hills and everything, snowmobiles. So we get a little bit of everything throughout the year. We used to be a little bit slower in the winter, but stuff's getting crazy just like everywhere else. It's growing every day, but around it is still pretty rural. So I started on my hometown department, Negaunee, which is about 20 minutes west of Marquette. Still a little bit older town, but more rural. And then as you get farther out, just keeps getting more rural and rural. Because I used to cover the whole county with our sheriff's department on our tech rescue team. So we could have times where we're responding 45 minutes to an hour before we get to certain scenes. So pretty crazy sometimes. Landmass wise, the county that I live in, Marquette County, is the largest landmass this side of the Mississippi, but our population isn't that big. It's just landmass wise. We're very rural. We have 17 departments in our county. We're the only full-time department. So every other department in the county is volunteer. We do have one other that's a combination as a full-time chief, assistant chief, and inspector. But they're just Monday through Friday. I think it's like 8 to 5, something like that. So other than that, everything else is volunteer. So, and that's how I started originally. Was on that department for 10 years. Started out as firefighter and eventually worked up as lieutenant, young lieutenant, only with 6 years on the job. But got, just like every other volunteer department, usually they hold all their officers as voting. And I got nominated and voted in. So, and we can talk more about that later too, once we get into some stuff of kind of a weird dynamic of having a young guy coming in as a lieutenant with my dad was the chief. So that was a little bit different experience, but I know some of the other stuff that we'll talk about later, I know I'll hit back on that again too. But more with Marquette, we're a smaller full-time department, which has its pros and cons. We're 2 stations, probably could be to 1 just with how times are now. But we are 2 stations, 8 men per shift, with up to 2 off. So our minimum staffing is 6, which a lot of time, especially now in the summer when it's nice up here, we're usually around 6. So that's usually our daily staff. Never drop below that, and we never go above 8 unless people are in for overtime for training and that and stuff comes in. We get a couple in, but most of the time, if we get a fire or whatever else, we're only going with 6 or 8 guys to the fire initially. Now we do have mutual aid with our volunteer departments coming in, so we still get some help from them, but getting their volunteers, so there's a little bit of a lag time with us being right there and them coming in, but they're usually pretty good. But most of the time we're going to work with 6 to 4 guys. You really look at it, because even if we have 8, our battalion chiefs command, and we have at least one of the engineers running the truck. So which is good and bad, depending on what's going on. More hands is always better, but the good part is when something comes in the city, structure fire wise or that, you're going to work.
Yeah.
Where sometimes in bigger cities you are going to some fires, but you might not get to work on every single one. So that is kind of a good thing. I look at it as within my department is when we get called out, no matter what, we're going to work. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah, sure. Is that when you're saying 4 to 6 guys, is that 3 total on 2 suppression pieces? Like, how does that break down once you're on scene?
So we staff 4 at each station, with a minimum 3 at each station. So if we're fully staffed, we'll have a structure fire comes in, we'll have 4 on each engine.
Okay.
So, and then it kind of breaks down. About 5 years ago, right when I started, we got a Tahoe put in place for our medical calls. Just like everywhere, they're increasing every year. So to take a little bit of wear and tear off of our trucks, if we are staffed at 8 or 7, we'll have that in play. So we'll put 2 guys on that. They'll handle all the first medical calls coming in. If back-to-back ones come in, then we still split the city and whatever sided on that house goes on. But if something fire-wise comes in and they're in-house, they hop onto the engine, because that floats in between whichever house. So depending on where it's at, those people hop on. But if they're out on another call, then that one engine's only going with 2.
Gotcha.
But,
and you guys are fire only, like you're first responding to EMS calls, but you're not running an AMBO.
no, so we are an ALS department, but we're non-transport ish. So if it's something more major, because we have our hospital covers the whole county. So if it's something major, or they do only have a BLS rig, we would transport in with. But if their rigs are all on different calls or transfers, because they cover the whole county, our township next to us has a BLS rig. We'll call them into the city.
Okay.
And then depending on what it is, but most of the time we'll transport in with them. So I always call it non-transport-ish.
Yeah.
So, which isn't bad, and it is good to still do it every once in a while, but it is nice not having to do it every time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's it's neat to see and hear and understand just the particulars of the departments, right? And it's neat. Just we could talk about that for a while. My buddy Dave LeBlanc over in Harwich, Mass, like they say the elbow of Mass, over on the coast. He's very much a seasonal town. So now that we're coming into the summer season, more restaurants open up, and like the influx of people to that area, just neat how that plays into operations. And yeah, that'd be neat to dig in one time. But the obviously the big thing I wanted to dig in on was I had the awesome opportunity to hear you speak at Key City Fire Conference, right in my backyard, and hearing you speak on your experiences from March of 2020. Also, we have an interesting connection. Both of our fires are in the 30 Fires You Must Know book. So it's just neat to, well, I use neat very loosely. Like we share an interesting bond, at least on that end. So it was, we've been able to take your lessons learned also at my firehouse, and then I sent you some stuff digging in on training, just really getting people thinking about what you and your crews went through that night. So, man, I'm just going to step back. I'm sure I might have some questions throughout or some clarifying things, but if you would, I'll just, I'll sit back and let you go.
Yeah. So March 13th of 2020, I was involved in line of duty death up here in the UP. When I was still on the volunteer side and running more with our county rescue team. So a little bit more history on that before I head forward is it's with our sheriff's department. It originally started as extrication way back when. No one else in the area had the money at the time to get extrication tools. So the sheriff's department created this rescue team. Originally was just extrication, but as time grew on, more people got into it. More departments got it. They started expanding. So they got into hazmat and technical rescue is their big stuff. But the other thing is they do get dispatched to most of the county. Marquette, unless it's something bigger, they don't really for fires. But everywhere else in the county, they get called and are automatically put on as RIT, or the other thing is filling air too, because it has a whole cascade system on the truck. So that was the unit I was on this night as the RIT team. It's a kind of more still ran like your volunteer department, all carried pagers. Something comes in, get paged in, go into the station. Originally, how it was kind of set up was you'd have to be an officer within your department because it's not a true fire department, so there's no real structure. So how they originally started it was you'd have to be an officer. So then no matter who shows up, it doesn't matter if you're driving back or on the officer, they're all at that same kind of level per se. I was the first one.
Sorry.
What's that?
Is this for the rescue specifically?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for the rescue department.
Yeah.
So getting on, obviously my dad was on it too. So I grew up around it. Something that was really interesting to me. So when I started getting enough of the qualifications, I really started bugging the captain of the sheriff's department that ran it to get on it, or at least start training, and could come to some of that stuff probably mainly because my dad was on it too. But really started bugging them, started getting my tech certifications, different things. The only thing I didn't have was the officer. So being kind of a pest and annoying them enough and kind of showing them at some trainings and everything that I could hold my own, still had a lot to learn. I ended up being the first one to get hired on them that wasn't an officer.
Nice.
So kind of cool in a way that, I was the kind of first one with that, but then getting on it and realizing I still had a lot of work to do with a lot of this stuff. But it was a great experience. Right when I got on it, we had a couple really cold winters up here that a lot of pipes were freezing. So people were essentially lighting their house on fire, trying to, thaw pipes out different ways and stuff like that. So really great experience of catching a lot of fires, almost nonstop for a couple weeks, for a couple winters back to back. So learned a lot in those first couple years, which probably in turn helped me become the firefighter I am today. And even the night of we lost Ben, just because I just had to learn more, gain a lot of experience, and really had to work at a lot of stuff of being on this, specialized unit at a younger age. So we were called that night as RIT. It came in as a confirmed structure fire in a split duplex on an old Air Force base. First reports were everyone was out of the structure and flames were coming out of a window. Again, like I talked about before, we usually had, depending on where it was, up to 60-minute response time. From our station to this one, it was about between 20 and 30 minutes, usually where that area is, which was kind of nice for some of the stuff because it gave you time to kind of take some of the CAD notes in or the dispatch information or radio reports and kind of have that game plan. But this kind of with that too is one of the first lessons that we kind of learned that kind of put us behind the 8 ball. Because as we're going there, their first arriving truck, their officer reported, again, everyone's out, fully involved structure fire.
Mhm.
That fully involved structure fire to me now is a very loose term. It's up to interpretation of even what your, definition of fully involved structure fire is probably different than mine.
Yeah.
We're just getting to know you more, where we would probably be very close on that, but still a little bit different. But to me, a fully evolved structure fire is there's no space within that structure that we can gain access in with our gear. That it's basement to second story, flames everywhere. There's not a single space that we can get in there. So that's what I had in my mind, talking with the two other guys that were in the back of the truck with me. We're all kind of on the same page. Like, all right, everyone's probably going to be out, still going to go do our kind of a RIT thing, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a little bit. Was kind of lax, but still kind of have that, but not in the mindset that we should be, no matter any time we're going, that we should expect something. So not saying we weren't prepared, we just weren't in the right mindset that people are actually going to be inside the structure fighting this fire. So we get on scene. We had to park at the end of the block, just because, again, our truck, we don't carry water or anything. It's all just a tech rescue. So we try to leave the main, drag open for trucks to get in and out. Especially it was in March, which up here is still cold. There's still snow on the ground. And it had hydrants there, but we still like to leave space open just in case they have to get tankers in or other trucks. So we don't like to block. So we parked down, but even when we're pulling up, it was at nighttime. You could see the nice glow coming up. So knew it was going pretty good. So figured again, okay, fully involved. No one's going to be in there. Grab some of our basic tools. Not everything that we normally would grab, which isn't a huge thing. It didn't change the outcome of this. But again, just kind of being in that mindset of when you're assigned a RIT, no matter what, just grab everything you think you may need originally. Doesn't mean you get there. There might be something else on the truck you need to get, but kind of have some of that basic stuff. So we start walking up, and as we're walking up, you could see some hose lines coming from their first truck. Saw two guys on a snowbank throwing some water into the house because the fire was actually burned through the seaside roof. So they're just trying to lob some water, kind of keep it from spreading. And then I saw another hose line kind of going to the B side of the house, which was actually the main entrance for the house. The A side, there was no door. But kind of watching that, following it up, and I could see it take a turn and actually go into the house. So I'm like, that's a little off. So they had one of their assistant chiefs right at that door. So we met up with them, trying to, get that game plan as we should as RIT, see where people are, what's going on, is the fire getting better or worse when they first got here. And at that point, we realized that they had two members in the structure at this time. They had two others, which one of them was Ben and his partner were also in that house. They were switching out bottles at this time, but they said, they went down to the basement of the structure because it was kind of like a split level. Had some fire down there, put it out a little bit, did some work down there, and then had to come out. But they had two others in there at the time. They had the two on the snowbank, and they actually had people in the back too, spraying some water on the inside. So again, trying to get all that information of what's going on, different things. At that point, I was standing next to him. Ben actually came up, got to talk to him for a little bit. Knew him for a while, kind of growing up. Both our dads were in the volunteer fire service, so knew him growing up, going to different trainings and everything. I was working with his mom. She was a respiratory therapist at the hospital. I was working EMS at that point full time for them. So worked with her a lot with different things, different transports. And then his girlfriend at the time and my wife worked on the same floor at the hospital as nurses. So kind of had that connection with them too. So we're talking just a little bit. He was waiting for his partner, got to BS with him a little bit. Just the normal firefighting joking stuff that we get to do. And then his partner came up. The other two people came out, talked to their assistant chief, kind of what was going on. I didn't hear any of it at that time, but I heard later on through some people that crew that came out did let the assistant chief and other people know that the floor was starting to feel spongy, but no one really relayed that or really took it into consideration at that point.
And question for you. So at this point, split level home where Ben knocked down a little bit of fire that was in the lower level of the split, but you said the fire, they went on scene with fully involved, but it doesn't match with, I think what our definition is, but just to clear this up, there is fire in, is it like a back bedroom that's extended up into the roof, like it's broken through the roof? So it's kind of contained to a one room of the house?
So pretty much to this whole second floor was where all the fire was at this point. So that the front door was actually on the B side.
Yes.
You would go in through there, maybe 5 feet, and is the kind of like the scissor stairs.
Yep.
You'd have the ones going up. You go up to there. There was a bedroom right to the left of it, which we found out later was the room of origin. Yeah. There's another bedroom behind that, hallway, master bedroom, and then a bathroom and closet all on the right side. So that was your upper floor. And then when you walked in that door was the main room or main floor. You had your kitchen, living room, and that all was on a concrete slab.
Okay.
And then the stairs going right next to the ones upstairs went down to the basement. And the basement was only under that second story.
Correct. Yeah. Got it.
And all the fire was at this point on that second floor. Like I said, it burned through the C side roof. It did burn through the floor a little bit, and that's where they got the little bit of fire and stuff down in the basement that caught some like clothes and different things on fire. Gotcha. But at that time and during this whole rescue, there was no fire in the basement.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So they kind of did that handoff. Again, I never heard it, that the floor was spongy. I don't think Ben and his partner never did either. Again, in hindsight, I don't think it would have changed anything. So then at that point, Ben and his partner were going to tag in, grab that hose line and go back in. So actually, let me back up just a little bit right before Ben showed up. When we're talking to the assistant chief, the fire was still blowing out the window of the room of origin, and it was right by kind of that front door, just up a little bit. And I could see that the crew on the snowbank really wasn't doing anything. They were cooling the roof a little bit, but at that point, not really doing a whole lot. So they actually, I can't remember, got reassigned or something, but the hose line was just sitting there. So I actually walked over there and was about to grab it and start dumping some water into the window. Because before, we were always called for RIT, but again, being that specialized unit, nothing against the departments around the county, but they're rural, don't get a whole lot. So a lot of times when we show up on scene, we'd actually go in and fight the fire, put it out for them most of the time. Still have some people out, but that's just what we did. So seeing a hose line laying there, like, we could do something. Yeah, I'm going to work. Yeah. And I grabbed it and started walking over there, and my partner, he's going to back me up, and we're just about to do that. My dad's like, "What are you guys doing?" I'm like, "I don't know, going to do some work. Like, even if it's just standing here and spraying some water, just help him out a little bit." And he's like, "No, put that down, you're RIT." Me and my partner look at each other like, "What's his deal today? Like, he's never told us not to go to work." So I was just like that was looking back on it, that was like the second weird thing that happened that day, that night with everything. The first one was, the first in report to what we really had. And the second one was him telling us not to do what we normally do. So kind of threw back at that, but we're like, oh, whatever, our officer told us not to do that. So put that down. And then that's when Ben came up, all that other stuff happened. And then, so they grab the hose line, they go into that B-side door. At first, they're just at the bottom of the stairs on that concrete slab, spraying some water up into that second story. Because I got the question a lot after it, and still do when I go and talk about it, is, why did they go up into that second story, when it was pretty much well involved, and, they weren't saving anything. Yes, they weren't saving anything on that second floor, but they're trying to protect it coming to the rest of the house, because the living room was down there, everything else. So there's still, valuables of those people that we could save. We're there to save life and property, where they were still doing that. So, I had no problem with them, still had no problem with them being there. Even today, they're doing their job. And in reality, him going in up those stairs, because the stairs weren't taking over fire, because all the fires that's going on up there, it's going up the big vent hole on the seaside floor. So he did exactly what any of us would have done.
Sure.
Put myself in his shoes, standing there just spraying some water. What are we all going to want to do? Get closer to the fire, put it out quicker. So watching him, and even where they're at, had no problem with him being in there, because people are like, oh, he should have never been in there. He's doing fireman stuff. He's doing exactly what we should be doing. And not only that, even if it was a little bit more involved, he's on a concrete slab, not going to go anywhere, and nothing was burning over him. Again, trying to protect that property. So kind of watch them maybe for a few seconds. At this point, one of our team members was starting our RIT 360 and going around. Me and my partner were a little bit behind him, just because, again, I was talking to Ben, so I was being a little slow. But me and him started, and as I was about to turn the corner, because there was a garage that was attached to it too, I was about to turn the corner of the garage to start going to the seaside, I looked back one more time and saw that Ben and his partner weren't standing at the bottom of the stairs. Didn't think too much of it, but just kind of in the back of my head, it was like, all right, they're not there anymore. They're up on the second floor. Not really worried about it still, but just kind of put that in the back of my head. And then as I was just about to turn the corner, I could hear their assistant chief call out Ben's name. And that kind of stopped me dead in the tracks, because it's just something you don't hear a whole lot in the fireground, of someone using someone's first name and multiple times. So I kind of stopped and looked, and you could still, like, he was like, Ben, go Ben, something like that. Because as with stress, you start losing some of that memory and some of that stuff with that. So, but I do remember him calling out his name. So kind of stopped and looked, and at this point, his partner came running down the stairs and running to the front door screaming for help. And at that point, didn't even think about it, what to do, just got into that mode of going to work. So my partner was still right next to me. We dropped down, got our mask on, masked up and everything, and got in there. And to Ben, approximately within 60 to 90 seconds from his partner coming out. Again, it's a rough estimate from some of that stuff, because again, the high stress that we were in, time goes out the window. So I pulled a lot of this stuff from our radio from Central, but also that kind of threw us a little off, because no mayday was called right away. One, Ben couldn't really get to his radio or speak a lot, just from the position that he was in, that I'll get to in a couple minutes. His assistant chief tried to call it, but they used a radio system where all the officers and all their firefighters are on VHF radios, where everyone else and dispatch is on 800. So their assistant chief had 2 radios and 2 mics. My dad said when he was originally trying to call the mayday, he was hitting the VHF radio and it wasn't getting out to central to be able to timestamp it.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't until we were already in the structure that my dad actually called the mayday.
And is
so that's why
you didn't hear some of the original transmissions?
Yeah.
Because
That's part of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because it was on VHF and that's why we never heard it.
Okay.
Him trying to go out. So again, that one of those weird things within rural small areas that happens. So but that's why some of the time frames that I have are not perfect per se, because I just don't have the right timestamps for them. But me and my partner, like I said, we're to them within, I'd say 60 to 90 seconds. You know, we were not too far from the door, and where he wasn't too far from where we entered. But again, then kind of just went into that working mode. I was the first one up to him. He was maybe a foot or two from the top of the stairs. There was obviously flame, smoke still rolling. Could tell that he was down. So figured, okay, you know, it's going to be a somewhat easy response as, you know, just going to get him and pull him out of the hole. Because before this night, everything that we'd seen before, everything that we're taught or learned of someone falling through the floor in a house is either they go all the way to the basement or they're hanging there and they just need a little help up.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. So I kind of got up to him, put my mask to his mask. He was still awake, said, hey, Ben, you know, it's me. We're here. We're going to get you out. And his air pack was still above on the floor. It wasn't in the hole. So I kind of grabbed the back of that, grabbed his one shoulder strap. My partner right behind me, we kind of snugged really close to together because we're in a stairwell at this point, because he was pretty much at the top of the stairs, which normal residential stairwell hallway is not very wide.
Yeah.
But we were able to kind of get there. He was able to grab the other shoulder strap, and we went to go pull him out, and Ben didn't move maybe an inch, if that. Didn't expect that at all. Because again, I always taught before that they're either all the way to the next floor below them, or we're just going to grab them, kind of pull them up. So kind of threw us for a loop for a little bit at that point. I tried, you know, hitting the floor around them to see how steady or sturdy it was, because again, something already burned through probably means the rest of the floor isn't that stable. But it was solid as could be. And I went there 2 years after the incident to take some different measurements and stuff, and we walked around that whole second floor with no problem. So the rest of that floor was perfectly intact. So again,
at this post fire, exposed to the elements, and it's still like solid. Like that's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. There wasn't even sponginess to it.
Yeah, incredible.
I mean, we had 4 of us up there, and it was just like walking around a normal floor.
Yeah, crazy.
Mm-hmm. So we tried one more time. Still couldn't get him up. At this point, our third member that was a little bit ahead of us on that 360 had made it into the structure. We sent him and Ben partner and one other guy that was kind of right there from another department to the basement to see what was going on, to see what we could see, you know, what he was stuck on. Because at this point, we still didn't know how small the hole was. We figured he was just caught up on something. So we sent them down, and thankfully, the partner that we had that we sent down there is like 6'5", 6'6". So he was able to go there, and Ben was actually able to stand on his shoulders to kind of, again, give a little bit more support. And he was able to reach up and find his waist belt, because that had gone through, but the rest of the pack was up. So he was able to reach up, unclick the waist belt, and at that point, you could feel a little bit of weight, you know, lifted. Kind of like, okay, maybe that was what was making him stuck. So my partner, again, more grabbed the coat this time. I kind of grabbed his coat and tried to lift him up again, and still didn't move. So we're kind of really, scratching our heads at this point. And kind of in between then, we started breaking some more drywall too, just to give us a little bit more space. He kind of ended up into a little bit of a closet to try to gain, which couldn't really gain much access. And the drywall that I was breaking was actually into the room of origin that had already flashed. So even trying to go there or even a little past them, couldn't really do it. We didn't have a hose line, obviously. Just got way too hot. So really we could only do a whole lot on those stairs, which wasn't a whole lot of room. But after that third or fourth time that we tried lift them up, made the decision that if we can't get them up, we have to get them down. So started kind of see if we could push them down, trying to come up with that. And at that point, because I always had my right arm still always around him, just one of those things of you're not letting your fellow brother go, and could kind of feel him go limp at that point. So again, got down, got to his mask. He wasn't responding. He wasn't moving at this point. Couldn't really tell if he was breathing or wasn't. All I knew is the MMR wasn't engaging. So I opened up his purge valve a little bit, just in case if he was breathing a little bit, but not enough to engage that MMR, he wasn't going to suffocate. But found out later he had already stopped breathing at that point, but don't know at that point. So open up that purge valve, and then again started to try to lower him through that hole, but again didn't know how small the hole was at that point, and that was even a struggle. So we had to start, taking his helmet off, his mask, get him out of the air pack, kind of out of the jacket as we're pushing him through to be able to fit through the hole. So able to lower him down. Again, had those three guys down there in the basement. They were able to kind of bear hug him, lower him to the ground. And then at that point, I left that spot, met them at the stairs, helped them carry Ben up the rest of the stairs, which wasn't easy because we had to ditch all of his gear. So kind of like a civilian at that point, not a lot of grab handles, where normally if we're in our gear, it's easy to grab onto stuff and go. So got him up to the top of the stairs. And again, maybe 10, 12 feet from those stairs to the doorway is all we had to drag him. So I'm like, all right, we almost got him out. I went to go grab him and went to, drag him out the rest of the way, and my body didn't move at all. At that point, my stress and adrenaline, I couldn't tell that I was tired because of all that, but I was so jacked up and everything that my body's just like, nope, you are done for a second.
Yeah.
So I looked over and saw it seemed like hundreds of eyes peeking at us because everyone on that scene's right at that door. Called for another one of our members. They came, helped the other guys drag them out. They got them on a backboard. And I was able to follow them right out. I just had nothing left in the tank to drag them. But as we're coming out of the structure, their department also has a limited advanced life support ambulance right on scene. So knew we had an ambulance right there, but knowing who they had, they were riding 3 people that day. One, she was a EMT for that department for 20, 30 years at that point, but from the area, so was known Ben since he was a baby. One was an advanced EMT for about 5 years, but knew Ben, and another one had just finished like 6 to 8 months before that. So nothing against them. They're all solid providers, but in my mind, just knowing who they had and knowing that I was the only paramedic at the time on the scene, I knew my job wasn't done, that I was going to finish this out. Not only just from the medic side, but just from knowing it's one of our own, that I wasn't leaving until the job was done. So I'm coming out and I'm started ditching my stuff. My dad, my crew's trying to check on me, see if I'm okay. And, the state that I'm in, I'm pushing them away like, hey, get away, I'm fine, ditching stuff. Get to the ambulance. Again, nothing against the people that drug him out, but they put him on the backboard face down, which again, who cares at this point? We're trying to get him out, get him to the ambulance. But we get him up into the ambulance and knew I had to roll him. And there's people, at the back of the doors, and I don't look, and I just say, "Hey, you, come help me roll him." Well, I didn't realize that "Hey, you" that I pointed to was his dad.
Ben said.
Ben's dad, yep.
Man.
So Ben's dad actually comes up, helps me roll him, and as I'm rolling him, because I'm looking at Ben, and I roll him, I look up and I see his dad, Ron. I'm like, oh crap.
Wow.
So kind of look at him, kind of look at Ben, and I look at Ron. I'm like, hey, I know the situation, but you got to get out of my ambulance. And he totally understood. He's like, yeah, absolutely, and got right out. Not saying that it would have been horrible if he was in there, but as we all know, with any EMS call, family members don't try to do any harm or anything, but usually can cause some issues.
Sure.
Sometimes just with the state that they're in. Totally understandable, but knowing what we probably had to do, asked him to leave, and again, he got right out. So at that point, had the 3 EMTs from his department there, got him on the monitor, and at this point, kind of froze. Not because I didn't know what to do, but another training scar that I found after looking back at this that I was exposed to throughout my career, and a lot of people are exposed to. Most of the time when we do RIT training within departments, when we use, live victims to simulate that, which we should, so we get comfortable with moving real humans, how they move and everything. But when we do that, what's usually the first thing that they do when we get them out of the structure or to a safe place?
Get up and walk away.
They stand up, walk away, we high five and everything. So subconsciously, that's what my brain was thinking, because again, with the high stress, I wasn't fully thinking because my body just couldn't handle that. So it shuts off that frontal lobe.
Yep.
So I froze there for a little bit because I'm like, he's not getting up. Like this isn't what's supposed to happen. And again, probably a short period of time, but kind of snapped out, realized what we needed to do, and started our life-saving measures. Our ALS rig was still on the way there because, again, they weren't dispatched right away. Normally aren't for that area for structure fires because they have their own ambulance going. But not only that, they were kind of busy that night too, so they had a call-in crew and everything. So it took them a little bit longer to get there, but again, nothing that would have changed anything. So I made the decision to just get going and start meeting them, because no matter what way we went, we had to meet up with them before we got to the hospital. So told the driver, pulled a different firefighter from a different department that's also an EMT to drive for us, just because I wanted as many hands as I could in the back with me to start doing some stuff. So we started going, getting limited advanced life support. So they do have some of our stuff. The biggest thing was they just didn't have the medications that we needed. So I had them drop a eye-gel in for an airway right away. Had them hand me the IO kit, got an IO kit right away. With this department too, they're the only ones in our county that have a Lucas device. So we got that on him as soon as possible. Again, not running with them a whole lot. I forgot that they had it. Luckily, one of their members is like, hey, why don't we just use the Lucas device? I'm like, oh yeah, smart idea. So got that on them. Started headed towards ALS, met up with them. The crew that showed up, the medic, couldn't probably ask for a better medic that night. Had been doing it for 20 years. He was my preceptor going through medic. Really solid guy. So really relieved that he was there. He got on, said, hey, what do you need? I'm like, just throw me the drug box. I'll stay down by the leg because I already got the IO instead of switching stuff. I'm like, but will you intubate him? Just because figured he had some kind of respiratory issue with being stuck in the hole, that wanted that more definitive airway instead of just a supraglottic. So he intubated, just started begging. we continued with, CPR with the Lucas device, started, with the medications, and got on the phone with the doc somewhat quick at our hospital, which, again, stuff falling into place. Probably, to me, the best doctor we could have on that night. Very excellent emergency doctor, but he was also a paramedic before he became a doctor down in Detroit. So understood what we had capable to us and different things, and kind of understood the whole realm. So got on the phone with him real quick of just different things that are in per se our normal protocols for CPR. Because Ben was in PEA, pulseless electrical activity, which most of the time, and I say this when I'm speaking to, not trying to be morbid or not saying that we don't do everything we can, but on a normal cardiac arrest for that, we're usually only giving epi.
Right.
That's all we can give for that. So just thinking about some stuff, kind of wanted to go some different routes with it. So again, got on that phone with that doctor as soon as we could. Because, just in my mind, working in a fire, a lot of energy expelled, glucose levels could go down.
Sure.
So we gave him some D50. We treated him for crush injury too, just because he was stuck in a hole, didn't know what was going on. Treated him, for the respiratory arrest too, with some more sodium bicarb and different things. We literally threw every and any drug that we could think of to him. Again, just trying to give him the best opportunity that we could with just the situation that he was in, because it's different than a normal cardiac arrest with being in that fire. So in our county, our protocol is working cardiac arrest for 30 minutes before we can call. We were at about the 45-minute-ish mark, and kind of still going racking my head of stuff that I can do. And I'll probably never forget this, but again, I'm down at the legs, and I kind of just look up where the paramedic was, Eric, and he's still begging Ben, and just look up at him, trying to rack my brain, and we kind of make eye contact, and he had that look on his face of like, hey, it's probably time we go talk to the family and call the doc, but at the same time, like, I'm here for you, and we'll keep doing this if you want to. And I kind of look at him, just nod like, is it? And he goes, I think so. I'm like, all right. He's like, you want to do it? I'm like, no, you got to do it. Like, I was like, I'll still go in here, I'm still going to work it, but until you come back and say, hey, everything's done, I'm still going to do it. So we went and talked to Ron and Ben's sister, who were just right outside the ambulance because they followed us from scene. Got the okay from them. They obviously kind of knew what was going on, understood, we did everything, and called the doc and ceased all life-saving activity at that time. So did that. We were still on the side of the road, so loaded up. I still stayed with him, rode in with him to the hospital because his mom was going to meet us there. So they set up one of the trauma bays kind of as a private room for us. We were able to bring Ben in there, so mom, dad, sister, brother, and everyone, girlfriend at the time, could come in and kind of see him for one last time. So rode in with him because, again, just didn't feel right, leaving him at that point. So met up with them there, kind of did that whole thing, and then eventually went back to the scene to kind of grab my stuff. But then my department was still there, finishing fighting the fire, but I left at that point. So, but that was kind of the night in a small gist of everything.
Yeah, man. Incredible. Incredible story, incredible situation, incredible feat. There's a couple of things I want to dig in on. The first being to create some understanding about the hole that he was in. And to start is, I guess the cause of death was essentially positional asphyxiation, right? I mean, it was from him being able to like spread his diaphragm because he was so constricted, correct?
Yep. Yeah, it was the positional traumatic asphyxiation, I think was on the exact words on the autopsy. So yeah, just with how he was stuck in position, his diaphragm just wasn't able to expand, which would allow, the lungs to um, do the different things that it needs to, and just kind of suffocated from the inside.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't find any other underlying causes, no heart issues, nothing like that. So
Yeah. And I remember the graphic that you held up, the measurements, the actual cardboard cutout. And we're talking, I mean, on two edges, it's 13 by 13. And then it's kind of cut
mhm,
off. Like the other edge was like basically 8 inches to 6 inches. Like your ballpark number is 13 by 13. Like you're talking like a shoebox, right?
mhm,
Uh, and that's the Holy Fell, and everything around it, as you said, 2 years later, after being exposed to elements, fire, being vacant for 2 years was still pretty solid. This is the hole
mhm.
that I fell into, and you had the awareness to, all right, well, he's not coming up. We got to go down like that. That is a really small hole that this entire call is centered around. Like that, yeah, I
Mhm.
remember you holding up that piece of cardboard. It was pretty baffling.
Yeah, and that was actually the first time there because I have a cutout that's made out of mellow that I try to bring as much as I could. I just couldn't with flying, and that was actually the first time I did it on cardboard. But now doing that, I think I might continue to just do it on cardboard because walking into class that day, everyone's like, "Why does he have a piece of cardboard with him?" So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
folded it up where no one could see the hole and everything, and everyone's just like, "Why is he carrying cardboard around?" I think it just kind of puts it more into perspective too that this hole fits on the side of a normal cardboard box.
yeah, yeah.
So I think it just kind of
Class
brings it
just
home a little bit more.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you could see everybody in class like pull out phones, but then there was kind of like it kind of took your breath away a little bit. Like you could hear the vacuum in the room as soon as you like rolled out the cardboard. You're like, I mean, it made it very real. I'll put it that way.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I wish I had like a video camera on myself because there was good conversation going before that,
yeah,
and I take that out and I kind of drop it open, and like you said, like the air was just taken out, like everyone's just changed.
yeah, blown away. Yeah, it was
Hmm.
incredible. It's something that I kept thinking as you're explaining this is your awareness. And it's almost this dual awareness of you have the awareness of what you have to do in the moment, but then you're also able to have this secondary awareness of being able to zoom out. I mean, I'm thinking of little things like sending other people to the basement. You're breaking drywall to get more room. Opening up the purge valve, like little things like, hey, he doesn't have enough power on his own to be able to inhale and inspire. So I'm going to crack the purge valve. um, all the different type of meds that you're giving, like pushing them down instead of going up, like being able to be in one of the most metabolically and emotionally taxing incidents you can be in and having the awareness. I mean, in your words, where is that coming from? I mean, I think the easy answer is having the training and the sets and reps. Um, but it's not like thank goodness we're not running line of duties and maydays as much as we're running fires and medicals. So having that dual awareness, like looking back and reflecting on that, how did you nurture that?
I wish I had a good answer for you.
Yeah,
Um,
everything hit it all at once, right?
actually, yeah. Because Nick Peppard asked me kind of the same thing when I was on their podcast of like, how did you just keep going? I'm like, I just did.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it does come like you talked about the training. You just can never have enough of it. Um, Getting all that stuff into muscle memory and kind of working with that. And a bigger thing too, I think, kind of comes from my past, growing up in high school and everything, of playing sports and just being that little bit better conditioned and used to that and to some of the different stress and different things to overcome some of that. So like I said, and I know you're very dialed into it too with the metabolics and everything, that when we get to that high stress, our frontal lobe, our thinking brain shuts off and we just kind of start doing. So I think the more that we can train and understand this and do the sets and reps is when we do get to that high stress, you are doing and hopefully doing the right thing. But also the more you train and get used to that stuff is training yourself to that stress so you can overcome that shutting off of your thinking brain and to be that thinker. Because I get the question asked a lot of times going around and doing different things is, what makes a good, RIT team member? What skill or what tactic or anything? Like nothing. RIT skills or tactics is firefighting under chaos. There's nothing super special about, RIT tactics or skills. It's our basic firefighting under just more chaos. So to me, the biggest tactic or thing that could make you a really good RIT team member is that critical thinking. Because we're doing this stuff in chaos under worse situations. If you look at the data, again, 7.9% of the time, the RIT team's actually getting activated. That's the other one I get asked all the time. Well, why are you so big on RIT or, proponent of having RIT teams on there? Because if you really look into the data and read to it, even the 7.9% of the data is still a lot of maydays that the RIT teams get activated for, but usually out of that 7.9 means something bad happened. That's why the RIT team is getting activated. I still think you show up on scene. Yeah, everyone goes to work, try to flood that building with as many people as we can. But as soon as we can, we need to have that RIT team on the scene for those incidents where we need them. Because out of that 7.9% of the over 12,000 maydays from Project Mayday, that's where a lot of line of duty deaths are coming from, that 7.9%. Because that data that's coming across of all those where you see, yes, most of the time maydays are getting taken care of, by that firefighter, their crew or crew working next to them. But that's maydays mitigated.
Right.
I hope most maydays are mitigated by those top three ones. And I hope if the RIT team does get activated only on that 7.9% that they get mitigated. But a lot of the times our line of duty deaths are coming outside of those ones because it's that data is from how were they mitigated.
Yes. Yeah.
So I still think it's very, very important that we have that RIT team because it's the firefighting under chaos.
Yeah. No, I love the differentiation there. And I think you nailed it with RIT is just firefighting under chaos. I love that line. It's so true. And I think so much of this, when you talk about, and I've done deep dives, like you said, with, the prefrontal cortex just getting lit up or shutting down, depending on how well trained and how physically fit you are, how adaptable you are to the heat stress and heat burden. But you're trying to make the conscious efforts subconscious. And you essentially have to hit flow. Like you have to go on autopilot for so many of these skills and tactics. And that's when, like you said, it's under chaos. That is when so much of your movement, when your prefrontal cortex is strained and you are at 100% physical effort, so much of your movement and that lizard brain needs to be subconscious. And you're only going to do that with more sets and reps, like you said, under stress, and just making it second nature. The bar and the foundation needs to be raised to where those things are subconscious. So yeah, there's a lot going on just with that. So I just appreciate that awareness. And and then having to switch gears from now fire to ALS efforts is a massive switch. I mean, already you're depleted. I was in the same position where physically I could not move anymore. And now you're having to do a similar set of skills. And that's just a whole mindset shift as well, going from fire rescue now to the ALS side of it. Huge switch.
Yeah. And even just kind of going back a little bit of the metabolic and the stuff that we go through, normal firefighting, but you add into a RIT or mayday situation is, the amount of air that you use that you don't understand or realize. So we had 45-minute bottles. And for the amount of time that we're in there, I blew through a lot more than I normally would. And we weren't in there long. And people ask me like, how are you feeling like during it that you use that much? Like, could you tell? I'm like, no, in reality, I felt, even though my heart rate was jacked up, breathing a lot quicker, a lot heavier, it felt like I do right now, just having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Because you don't, because your body's trying to mask it too, but it's in this high stress situation. You're really not going to know that. And that's why going back to the trainings and the steps and reps is so important, because you're just not going to be able to notice fully how much stress you are in. You know, I was wearing a fitness watch that night and went back later on and pulled the heart rate stats. And from that time frame that I was in there, I was anywhere from 130 to 170.
Yeah. Wow. That's really impressive too. That's like, and that's totally normal. Peaking at 170 is from all the data I've seen and collected, that's pretty healthy. Like I got different guys hitting 190s in mayday and line of duty situations. So the fact that you can do that amount of work and hit 170s is, well, one, most people feel like they're going to die if they hit 170, but for you, trained, fit, that's really awesome. And air consumption for a lot of mayday incidents, you're doubling. So like going from steady state to firefighting work, you can cut your air consumption in half, and then going from firefighting work to RIT mayday work, you increase it by like another 50%, generally speaking. So yeah, it's just a massive amount of work that you can, it's hard. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug. It's kind of masking it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're managing all the same. That's yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, because I didn't say it earlier, but so the amount of time that we were in there for the rescue, to me, because I got asked the next day, you know, how long were you in there? I was like, at least 30 minutes, especially with seeing where my bottle was at when I went back and picked up everything, and found out after, because I was actually in my officer 1 and 2 final weekend, test out weekend that weekend. So the next morning I went to class, and obviously people had a bunch of questions, and one of the guys that was in it was actually the dispatcher for that night. And he's like, no, you guys are only in there for less than 10 minutes. I'm like, dude, there's no way.
Just time distortion.
And, you know, we pulled the time frame, and again, because the mayday was called a little bit later, so kind of went off, but it was between 7 and 9 minutes from the time that we entered till the time we got Ben out, was 7 to 9 minutes.
Wow.
And again, using a 4,500 PSI, 45-minute bottle, I was just over half a bottle in 9 minutes.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
And feeling like I do right now.
Yeah,
So
that's of massive importance.
Yeah. So all the data that's out there that says, you know, 21 to 27% more on air, it is 100% true that you are going to be using way more air in a mayday RIT situation from the stress and everything than you normally do just firefighting. So I think that's very important for people to truly understand and try to work on and train on, is, you know, that air consumption.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, something near and dear to me as well. I want to flip the script a little bit, and if we're moving too quick, just let me know. We'll back up. I do a lot of talking also on the back end effects of this, and these are incidents where, depending on how you view yourself, view the work you did, it could be the differentiation between experiencing PTSD, or you can use this incident for PTS growth, quite simply. And there can be resiliency that comes out of this. Sometimes you need to have those skills in place. Sometimes you learn it the hard way. If you wouldn't mind getting a little personal, a little introspective on, I mean, these things absolutely freaking rock you. And I know it did for many years. And I'm not saying that like things are fine now and the air has cleared, right? Like it's been 5 years, and even, you know, I'm 7 years out, there's still hard times. So how would you say you have or have not found resilience, peace, the hard times, because these are things that can rock individuals and departments and organizations.
Yeah. I think now where I'm at, I found the right ways to deal with it and kind of find that peace. But like you said, there's still the hard times. I mean,
Yeah.
there's still times even just driving, and there's not a day that I don't think about Ben, but just sometimes stuff hits you and you break down. It's human nature, but have found the right ways now where you are having those bad days or bad times, to get through it the right way. Rewind 5 years ago, that was not the case.
Sure.
Didn't really have those good things in place. Because, coming up when we came up into the fire service, it was, you don't talk about anything, nothing bothers you kind of thing.
Yep.
Being the type A personalities that we are. So didn't handle it the right way. It took probably a couple days for a lot of stuff to really hit me though.
Yeah.
Because it kind of goes through that whole process of, sinking in, and when stuff becomes kind of reality, that could kind of see that, it was different. But even that night, because after, during the incident, when my dad was still on scene, he actually ended up calling my mom, because I was going to the hospital. Wanted someone there with me because he couldn't be there, because he ended up taking over the scene, doing that part, his part of helping out. So called my mom, and again, nothing bad on my dad, but probably didn't handle it the best way with it. Was she picked up and says, need to go get Jamie, my wife, and head to the hospital. Brandon's on his way there, and hung up the phone.
Oh boy.
So, probably not the best way, but in his mind, he just wanted someone there. So she had no idea. So she, drives over to my house, waits till my wife gets there. They're trying to call my phone. Oh, it's dead. So they don't know what's going on. So luckily after, as we're heading to the hospital, one of the county sheriffs that I'm really good friends with, showed up there. Cause again, my dad sent him once he got on scene to go find the ambulance to have someone there. I was able to use his phone, call my wife. And then that's when I found out that they were headed, and just let her know it wasn't me. It was Ben, but we got there. But this is kind of like the first step looking back on it, that I knew it was something really different. Because we got home that night, we're kind of talking about the incident a little bit, and she even knew that was different because I was actually talking about an incident. Up and before then, all the stuff that we see on the job, do the different things, never really brought it home and talked about it. Like some calls here and there, or the goofy ones and everything, but the hard stuff that we see, never really talked about it. But I was like a open book that night, and could kind of realize that it was different, but it was. It was one of our own. It was family members, a brother that we lost. It 100% different. But as we continue, kind of going on, kind of having that PTSD, or one that I learned out more after, is that moral injury that we see a lot in the fire service, more than the PTSD, more of the, moral stuff, because we take more of that moral hit because we're called there to save the day, save that person, do whatever, and we don't. It's more of an injury on our moral kind of inside than true trauma.
Yes.
And things like that. So started having some of that, the anxiety. Another big one that I found out, or had a feeling during then, was embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
And not wanting to go out in public much, around the town, around there, to the different things. Even when I was still working and just responding to that area, or anywhere really, because it's, rural area, small night, tight-knit communities, people talk, people know, showing up on scenes, and just in my mind thinking that people know who I am. What I didn't save Ben, do they want me here trying to save them, do different things? or going out in the public and people seeing, oh, there's the guy that let Ben die. So that was a really big one for me, of kind of that embarrassment of failing, not bringing Ben back. That was probably the bigger one, that it took me a while to get over.
Yeah.
Obviously the failure, and I know if Ben's mom listens to this, she's going to yell at me again because she hates every time that I say that I failed, because we brought Ben out where he didn't have any major injuries, that we could have a open casket funeral for him and she could, still see him for one last time. But in reality, I tell her all the time, I'm still going to talk about it, we did fail because our ultimate goal was to bring him home alive. So we did. But now I'm to the point of, it's not I guess it's not the right way to say it. It's not a bad failure where I'm beating myself up for it all the time. It's a failure where we get to learn from and get better. Because that's what we do in the fire service. Is the best way to learn is to fail. Hopefully we only fail in training and learn from there. But
Right.
This is a learning failure, not I'm taking it down on myself kind of fail.
Yes.
So to take it to get better has helped me. The other thing is just opening up and talking about it all the time. That's therapeutical, as we talked about before. But the other thing was just trying to get out and talk to more people that have been around the fire service, EMS world a lot longer than we have, to see if there was anything. Because obviously I was very into the job before, still am, but I got totally obsessed with it, almost to probably not the greatest degree, but I wanted to learn everything, do everything, try to figure this thing out. Was there something that we could have done different? And talking with a lot of people, a lot of different doctors too, of was there something even I messed up on the EMS side? And it all comes back of there wasn't anything that we could have done different.
Yeah.
Are there some techniques that we've talked about of trying to work with and come up with different ways that if this happens again? Yes, there's better ways to do it, but from that night being the first time this has ever been seen, there's nothing different that we would have done that would have changed it in that time frame.
Sure.
Because a lot of times, yes, could we have brought saws in and made the hole bigger, different things? Absolutely, but it's that time frame that really puts a hinder on it of what could we do in 9 minutes.
Yeah.
As
absolutely.
the first time. Now trying to get this stuff out more, this incident to more people, you get called to someone that fell through a floor or stuck in a floor, you should start bringing some of this stuff because now it's out there, give that down firefighter a better chance. But that night there was nothing. So kind of doing that. The other big one that I found out that I was really struggling with was about 2 weeks before this incident, went on a NICU run to pick up a baby from a different hospital to bring it to the hospital that I worked at, because we were the only NICU in the UP, or in our county, I should say. And his mom, Carla, was the respiratory therapist for that one. So we go do that call, we're coming back, and we're talking about, because at that time his sister was in the fire class, and she's like, yeah, Tori's in fire class, so now I'm going to have 3 people, going to these fires. And, it was bad enough when I was just, the fire wife, and then I was the mom, but now I'm going to have 2 kids and a husband. And I looked her dead in the eyes and said, Carla, don't worry. Remember, every time there's a fire in Gwynn, I'm coming there as Rit. I have your family's back. And then 2 weeks later, go to do that thing, and I don't bring her son out alive. But it took me a while to understand that was bothering me, just talking to one of my mentors on the EMS side of that stuff. And he's like, I bet you that's what's one of the things. So
Sure.
I had a conversation with Carla and Ron one night, and she goes, Brandon, I'm sorry that you're struggling with this, but I don't even remember that conversation. I was like, well, and talking with her made it, did help with it. But that was one thing too, that I literally looked at mom in the eyes and said, I always had their families back. And then 2 weeks later didn't.
Yeah.
So that kind of compiled on it too. Then dealing with the stuff probably wasn't the right way either. Couldn't sleep, didn't want to sleep. Replayed that incident a lot of times over and over when I did sleep. I had a reoccurring dream too of that night. It was pretty much just the time that I started masking up, making entry into the building. And when I got to Ben and I got my mask to his mask, it wasn't Ben's face anymore. It was mine. And then I'd wake up right there.
God, that's incredible.
So just didn't want to, do with that anymore. So really wasn't sleeping. Really only way I could sleep was drink till I passed out kind of thing. So wasn't handling it. And then, the thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore started to creep in. Not that I, wanted to die or anything. It was just wanted to get rid of the embarrassment, these other feelings, all that stuff that I was going through, not being a shell of the person that I used to be, not being a good person, good friend, good husband or anything. Just didn't want to be that person anymore. And one way that to get rid of all of that was to do the next step. Never had a plan or anything, never really got to that point, but the thought of it started to creep in and made me realize how easy that really is.
Yeah.
Just all that stuff coming in is you're just not thinking right. And what's the easiest way to fix it? Just to stop it all.
Yeah.
And during this whole thing, I was still working, going to do all this stuff, never went to work or anything drunk or anything, but I was able to put on a good mask for everyone.
Sure.
One of my mentors at EMS, when these thoughts started coming in, I pulled him aside and talked to him because I knew it wasn't right. And he actually has a minor in psychology, and he couldn't believe I was at that point because around everyone else, I still acted as my normal joking self.
Yeah.
Because I was putting that mask on for everyone and didn't want anyone else to know that I was struggling. So kind of knowing him and knowing how good he is just at his job and everything, not being able to realize that, really started getting the ball turning to get better. Because I wasn't working out either, just kind of being a lazy slob at that point. But the biggest thing was getting back into the gym and, just getting moving more, getting back into that routine, getting to that place where it could let all these emotions out without still talking, because that was still weird at that point of doing it, but it was that escape. And different things. At that point, was just on Facebook one day and came across Fire Rescue Fitness from Aaron Zamzel. Because again, just trying to look for something to get back into doing something. I was like, yeah, I'll give this a try. Just try to something to help me get back into a routine. Because the normal stuff that I was just doing that I did before, with sports and everything in the gym, just wasn't doing it for me anymore. Just didn't have that motivation to go do it. So trying to get into a different routine to help me get to that better spot. So I started that, getting into his stuff has some great tools with, mental resiliency and everything too. So helped out a huge way with my recovery process. And I've had this conversation with him too, because I actually became very good friends with him. Met him when we both spoke at Firehouse Expo in the last couple of years that it was around, and do owe a lot to Aaron on my whole recovery process and still being here. And he's like, hey, it wasn't me. I just put something on Facebook. I'm like, no, you put the time and effort into creating that stuff. And if you didn't have those Facebook posts and everything, I wouldn't have found that and wouldn't have helped my recovery. So I think that was a big thing too, was just getting back into the gym and starting that new routine of becoming the new Brandon.
Yeah.
Because I was never going to be able to get back to the old one I was before, because something major happened in between then. But can I get to a new normal of kind of what I was, but still with that heartache, that trauma and everything, but still a person that could get through the day the right way, healthy way, and get back into who I was before.
Yeah, man, it's a scar, right? And sometimes it drives me nuts when people say, I'm the same person I was 20 years ago. I haven't changed. It's you that's changed. And it's like, nah, I think, there are times, especially in moments of crisis or deep reflection, we have to change. We have to shed an old skin. And man, I just really appreciate the vulnerability and rawness of everything you just said, because between me and my guys, we experienced all those same things to different degrees or slightly different experience, but it's a real thing. And man, when you get to the point to where you start contemplating certain actions, you're like, some people go through with it, some people just crawl up in a hole and kind of wither away, and then other people are like, nope, I got to make a change. So yeah, I really appreciate the like I said, the vulnerability, the rawness, the willingness to speak out. I know that I have learned and it helped me get through these situations by listening to other people, and I was better prepared for it when it hit. So I know that this will be the exact same thing. We were talking too, like, you have to request Nosh to come in, right? Which that didn't happen for you all. So with you going out and speaking and going to conferences and doing this on the podcast, like, one, I am so honored, and two, that's how we're getting that information out. And I know it's going to get good feedback. So yeah, it's just thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everything that you've done, and getting to meet you and having me on here and helping share Ben's story. That's the biggest thing. Not only better the fire service and the stuff that I learned from it, the incident, the different things, but the bigger thing is honoring Ben still, as you do. That's the biggest thing for me. I know we talked about it. We're privileged enough that we get to go around all over the nation and do these speaks and talk to people. You get to do your podcast and everything, but whenever it comes my time that I'm done on the teaching circuit, whenever that is, if that's tomorrow or 20 years from now, I still hope everyone remembers the name Ben Lauren and no one remembers the name Brandon Cory, because then I know I've done my job to honor him and continue his legacy and make the fire service better. That's really all what we're here for, is leave it better than we found it. And if we can carry on his legacy, and it was a month or so ago when you text me those pictures of going over the Ben's chapter with your guys and coming up with that prop, I was smiling for the longest time after that. That was awesome to get that text message and everything from you guys, because not only knowing you into the job, doing the work, but taking that time to honor him is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's very how serendipitous that we met, and we both come from similar backgrounds. And yeah, like, you had me fired up just from your experiences and wanting to learn, and the guys and gals jumped right in to make a prop, and we wanted to do what we could to honor. And yeah, you have now that I've gotten to know you more, you have your fingerprints all over the fire service a little bit. And I what you just said resonates with me a lot, is I don't want to be known as the woodscape guy. I know you don't want to be known as, like the Brandon Cory, Rit, Mayday, this is my experience. We don't want to be fire department famous for these things at all. And so you said that really beautifully. Like, this is about Ben and his legacy and helping others become better. And at the same time, you're doing a lot of really good things out there. You do have your fingerprints on the fire service. And I know if somebody wanted to reach out or participate or you support other causes, I feel like you have your hands in a bunch of different things. So if you could, as we kind of close this out, what are those?
Yeah. So recently, as of last October, our state lead for the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation got involved with them, obviously after the Ben incident, and trying to help on that stage with it too, on the different things, and saw what they did for Ben's family and that. So trying to help out with that. Then I'm also part of Build Your Culture and help run the Great Lakes Hot Conference here in Michigan. So don't really do a whole lot of teaching at that conference, obviously behind the scenes, but with Build Your Culture, just trying to get around and again, spreading Ben's story and the different RIT skills and that. But then probably the biggest thing recently that I didn't think was going to have as big of an impact on the fire service as it did was just wrote an article for Firefighter Nation on the effects of a line of duty death on a firefighter. Wanted to write that one for a healing process, but and I kind of talked about an article too, is we can Google, look at books or whatever on all the tactics, skills used on these incidents and learn from them, which is a great thing. But there's never anything, as I could find, not a whole lot, or didn't think there was a whole lot out there of the effects after. So I wanted to put my experience on there, sent it in, it got published, and it took off like wildfire. Talking with people inside of fire engineering and Firefighter Nation, they say this was the first time that something that has done. And to me, again, didn't think it was going to take off as much as it did, but it did. But I'm thankful for that, because we need to change that aspect a little bit into the fire service and give more teaching tools on that, not just on the tactics, but the health and wellness after it also. So it was pretty cool to see how well that took off. And like you said, the fingerprint it has now on the fire service. Got a lot of messages about it, calls, texts, and it's just really awesome. Again, not only putting that in the forefront of what people go through, but again, another way to help honor and push, Ben into the spotlight.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. I'll make sure it was a fantastic article, and I'm going to make sure to include that in the show notes. So it's like a one-stop shop for people to see and read. It was well done and necessary. So again, thank you for the rawness, putting it out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've been humming on 90 minutes, and you put out just an incredible amount of information, and what better way to learn from than first point of view here. Yeah, I remember, I think one of the last slides you had in your class was don't think you are the exception to the rule. And it doesn't matter if you're a major metro department or a smaller department from UP. It's these things can get you, and so nobody's immune.
Yep, exactly. It can happen to anyone at any time. Doesn't matter, like you said, big city FDNY or small rural Gwinn, Michigan.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Until next time, right?
Yeah, appreciate it.